Cryptic messages. Alan Saint-Maximin loves a cryptic message, and yesterday on his Instagram he posted one of his most cryptic messages. Yeah, it was very, very long, and basically people are debating whether it's a goodbye message or whether it's just a thank you for supporting me through the rough times kind of message. Who knows whether he'll be a Newcastle player or not next season, but this one does feel like it might be the end for Alan Saint-Maximin at Newcastle. And what would that mean for Newcastle United? Saint-Maximin has a contract until June 2026, so the resale value for a 26-year-old who's going to turn 27 next season is still very decent with 3 years left on his contract. Obviously, coming up to what is potentially the prime of his career, he has got good market value and probably would command a fee somewhere in the region of 40 million quid, something like that, I would imagine. The club could use that money to boost their financial fair play figures because of how it works. If you sell a player, then that money you can reinvest, obviously, but the money you reinvest can then be spread out over many years. So actually your financial figures can look better than just, say, £40 million if that's what you sold him for. It could be worth more than that to the club in terms of financial fair play. So that's an interesting factor as to whether the club are deciding to sell him or not. He is linked with a move to AC Milan. I don't know how much truth is in those rumours. That's what was going around last night, that there's Milan are in for him. Again, time will tell on that. In terms of who he is, Alan Saint-Maximin, we know, is a very dangerous player. Overall for Newcastle, in the Premier League, in the 4 seasons he's had for us, he's had 18 assists and 12 goals, which don't sound remarkable figures, but when you think 2 of those seasons, or two and a half of those, or 2 1/4 of those seasons were kind of under Steve Bruce, it doesn't look as bad when you think of it like that. In the last 2 seasons, which have predominantly obviously been under Eddie Howe, he's had 10 assists and 6 goals, and that comes from 60 appearances. Many of them, though, remember, are just substitute appearances, whereas in the first couple of seasons he was obviously playing every single match, apart from when he was out injured. I think he played 50 games in the first 2 seasons. So his value for the minutes played is much better under Eddie Howe than it was under Steve Bruce. No massive surprise there, I suppose. He is showing signs that he could be a player who can play under Eddie Howe's system. Now, I don't think he'll ever be first choice in an Eddie Howe team, but the way that the club is going, obviously with Champions League football, we need squad players who are up for coming on and doing a good job. There might still be a future at Newcastle for Saint-Maximin if he can keep going and showing Eddie Howe that he can play really well in his system. I think he's had a really frustrating season with injury, which has been really, really annoying for him and the fans, because I think when he has come into the team, just before, he obviously got injured, he's been injured a couple of times, but when he's come back into the team later in the season, that he had a little run of games where he was really starting to look like he was tracking back, he was buying into the press game that Eddie Howe loves so much, and then he got injured again, and then it kind of dropped out and had some substitute appearances and then not many starts, and that's frustrating for him. The thing is with Saint-Maximin, he is a really good player. We know he's got all the talent in the world. If he is to leave, I think we just have to remember as fans just how much he was kind of like the light in our world under Steve Bruce, because it was such a dark time under Bruce and Ashley that Saint-Maximin really for 2 years was basically the only good thing happening at the football club, and he made us interesting and he got us important goals, and he was a player who was a key player for the club. Like, he was absolutely first name on the team sheet at that point. He's not that anymore, but that doesn't mean there's not a role for him at Newcastle United. And personally, I would actually, the more I've thought about this, the more I think I would love him to stay. I don't think he'll ever be a first team regular. Like I say, I think Eddie Howe would. I mean, he's brought Gordon in for a start, and I think that there's other players that Eddie Howe will probably pick ahead of him. But when you think we're going to be playing somewhere in the region of 50 matches next season, you can't tell me that there's not a place where Saint-Maximin can have a role in that squad, especially with Europe. And wouldn't it be a brilliant, brilliant reward for Saint-Maximin himself to have been there in relegation battles and then actually turn out for the club in the Champions League? As I say, whether the club see the value of selling him in terms of what that'll do for financial fair play and reinvesting in the team, time will tell this summer. But this message that he put out does, to me, look like there's more chance of him leaving than staying. But if he does go, I obviously would just like to say thank you to him for all he's done for the club. Would you be happy to sell Saint-Maximin? Do you think that his time is up at Newcastle, or do you hope that he sticks around and carries on playing for the club for another few years? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you really soon for another video.